Welcome to Divorce Dialogues. I'm Catherine Miller. Divorce Dialogues brings expert guests to the airwaves to talk through your divorce questions and fill in the gray areas about separating. From thinking about divorce to how to behave during divorce to what to do after, this is Divorce Dialogue. Welcome to Divorce Dialogues. I'm Catherine Miller. I'm the founder at the Miller Law Group and a trainer at the Center for Understanding in Conflict. And I am on a mission to change how people divorce and help them divorce with dignity. And my guest today is Diana Romanov. She's a San Francisco family law attorney and certified family law specialist, and she brings a truly global perspective to her work. Diana is fluent in English, Russian, and German, and she draws on her international experience and personal insight to guide clients through the challenges of divorce with empathy and clarity. Welcome, Diana Romanov, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really an admirer of your multilingual talents because I'm really good with English, but that's about it, other than maybe menu in Spanish and French. But you've practiced in both Germany and in California. And so what is it that, first of all, inspired your desire to get into family law? And then how has the different your international background and the different cultural experiences shaped your approach to divorce?
First of all, when I was 6, my parents decided to divorce, and I've seen it from a child perspective. And by the way, they're still together, so they got back together.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they're together now for 47 years. And I was also married once in Germany and also got divorced. And the divorce attorney who helped me was so good. He mediated the case and I didn't have to appear anywhere, and the case was done in 6 months. And so I learned from how I appreciated it. So I also experienced being divorcee. And when I passed the bar in Germany, when I passed the bar in California, I thought I would like to work with people directly. And when I interviewed a lot of lawyers who do civil law, I noticed they don't interact with people. They have contracts. I went into entertainment law. I thought it's going to be entertaining. It wasn't. It was a lot of contracts and no people involved. And that's how I thought I can be of value when I see things from different perspective, from how does it look like to be a child of a divorce when parents are fighting or not fighting? How would it be to be a client? Because I remember being a client and things I worried about and how I was interacting with my lawyer helped me to have more compassion with my own clients. And I went to a brainstorm seminar and I had this aha moment. Yes, I can be a family lawyer because I can relate to people. I can connect with people and I can help. And I want to be a different lawyer than the lawyers I have met so far. So that was my motivation.
Yeah, it sounds like a couple of things. Like one is the experience of being the child of divorce, being a divorce client, and your desire to have a personal relationship with your clients and help them on a personal level. And that
Yes.
so many areas of the law, and this is true, I guess sort of have a have certainly an impact on people, but not really a relationship with those people. And that for you, finding a way to be able to have a relationship with people and bring your own experiences to help them, as well as just being a lawyer, was really important.
And for example, things that I remember worrying about are emotional things, meant invoices. I noted that the way I would like to practice law, I would like to send invoices weekly instead of monthly or not at all. I heard some lawyers don't send it for months. And so any business transaction, I think, transparency is the key. I involve clients in all communications, BBC them in every single communication, so they see exactly what's going on. That's how I felt I wanted the divorce to be. And I made sure that it's my priority. Responsiveness, developing strategy with the client right off the get-go, right away, and invoices and many other things, but those are the 3 main things.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. Finish.
Your second question, I didn't want to forget. Your second question was how international background helps with helping clients, how being a lawyer in Germany, and I worked as a prosecutor, I worked for the administrative office, I worked for the judge, and having been in all 3 branches passing the bar in Germany, passing the bar in California. I think it's not just about languages, but also culture.
Exactly. I'm wondering about that because I think there is a lot of cultural difference
It
between
is.
various places. I mean, it could be from city to city, there's cultural difference, but certainly from California and Germany, there must be a big difference.
Yes. And so speaking not only the client's language helps, but also understanding their culture and how they think and what they really mean when they say things. Because of the cultural background, it helps tremendously, tremendously.
Yeah. And so I can imagine, Diana Romanov, that there would be a time someone could come to you, someone from Mexico, say, or someone who you hadn't lived their culture. But I can imagine that having lived in so many different places, and I think that speaking the languages helps with this too, that there might be an openness to seeing the cultural differences or sensitivity to cultural differences that maybe another lawyer wouldn't see or wouldn't feel. Does that make sense to you?
Also, being an immigrant myself twice, I was an immigrant in Germany. I know how it feels not to speak the language right away, how not to know the culture, how not to know the system. And a lot of my clients are also immigrants, so I know exactly how they feel when they're in this vulnerable position. Not only are they new into the country, but they're also going through a very difficult stage in their life, divorce. So that helps.
Yeah. I know that while we're talking about connecting with clients, that you've said that you wanted to create this boutique family law firm to connect more deeply with your clients, but I think also to be more the lawyer that you wanted, right? When you were
Yeah.
going through it, right? Because listen, I'm listening to you. So what does that look like in practice and how does it differ from a larger firm, at least in the way you think about it?
First of all, I can deal with the clients the way I would like to. Some clients, for example, like to leave me voice recordings of their thoughts on my cell phone. And a client is not just a case number or a number. I know exactly the situation they're in, more personal relation with them because I deal with them directly. I don't feel I need to bill certain hours that I would need to if I were to work for a big law firm. There are over 1,000, 2,000 billable hours sometimes required for a year to work, and I don't have that pressure. And I told my team the same thing. It's about taking one client at a time and create my mission, and it always been creating peace one person at a time. So when a client is emotional and we can talk about it, I don't feel rushed. And that's partially one aspect. I also like to work the way I want to work. I don't have to follow boss's instruction which client to take. If I notice a client is taking a path that is damaging to the children, and I tell the client my opinion, and I would say, if you would like to work with me, then we need to take this certain path. And if that client says, no, I want to show her or him, and this is how it needs to go, and you're going to follow what I say, then I don't take that client. That's the benefit of not working for someone else. I can say, no, thank you.
I'm Catherine Miller, and you're listening to Divorce Dialogues, a podcast dedicated to educating people about divorce-related topics so that everyone can divorce with dignity. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and so you don't miss an episode. And I'm talking today with Diana Romanov, a San Francisco divorce attorney, but one who has multiple multi-language and multicultural experiences. And I think, Diana Romanov, that divorce is such an emotional experience, right? Like that while we are lawyers and we're dealing with the laws and the finances, the feelings are at least as important as all of that. And it's very charged, right? And I think we all struggle as lawyers working in this area with the need to balance empathy for our clients, responsiveness, compassion, but also the need to give them clear, practical legal guidance. So how do you think about that, and how do you do that for your clients?
Well, first of all, I am not a therapist. And I tell that to my clients sometimes when they decide to spend a whole hour that they booked with me for 50 minutes to talk about why certain things happen in their life. Yet the balance is, and I keep saying that on the back of my card, I'm a lawyer, but on the other, I'm actually a therapist because I have so much compassion what they're going through. And it's a fine balance to listen and allow the client to vent so that they feel clearer to discuss other aspects of the divorce that I can actually help with. And I'm being upfront with them. I tell them, if you need emotional guidance, build your team. And actually, I put it in my book, Divorce Like a Boss, How to Build Your Team. And one of the team members, I recommend to have a therapist because it's a lot more sustainable and holistic to discuss with me things that are related to the divorce that I need to do. Sometimes it's a mix of things, compassion, listening, and then shift. So sometimes I do say things that are not necessarily considered legal advice.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Well, since you were talking earlier about your personal experience with divorce, do you think that impacts the way that you counsel your clients, your own experience?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
I was married for 7 years, and it was a wonderful marriage, and it has its ups and downs. And when I was going through divorce, it was such a difficult time for me. I was right in a new country, going through divorce, being an immigrant yet again in America, in California, going through divorce and taking the bar. So it's like 3 major life events. And when clients are going through divorce, and they're not being themselves, and they keep apologizing for not being themselves, they have a lot more patience, understanding, compassion. I've been there. I know what it feels like not to be yourself and not being irritated at your lawyer or at the world or at the situation, and just not to take things personally. And I have my own therapist once a week.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for everybody. So when you say, Diana, that clients are sometimes not themselves or that you weren't yourself through the divorce, talk a little bit more about what that means.
I thought when I was going through divorce that my divorce is the only thing that lawyer had on their table. And when I emailed, I expected a response within 24 hours. I don't think it's reasonable given how caseload is. And I got to learn that 48 hours is perfectly reasonable. And in my company, I decided to respond to clients within 24 business hours because I feel divorce is like an emotional emergency. So when someone asks a question, it's not that just a question, it's something they worry about, something they mulled over, something they asked ChatGPT and got the wrong answer, something that they need to feel calm about. So I have a guideline. I put in my retainer agreement that I respond to all emails from 3 to 4 every business day, unless the email was received at 3 p.m., so then I might not see it already, or the email is too long and I say, well, I need more time than 3 to 4, because let's say if I have 60 clients or 100 clients, they all decide to email me on one day, I can't respond to everyone. But typically, I let the client know. And so knowing that, and they don't get an email from me, they're like, hey, did you miss my email? I'm like, oh, sure, I did miss your email actually, or something. So we have a line of communication that they know what to expect. Then a lot of clients who come from other law firms, they say, well, I didn't hear from my lawyer for 2 weeks. Well, because I have written it down in my retainer agreement, they don't feel bad reaching out and following up if an email got lost.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that when there aren't clear lines of communication and people don't know what to expect, then it can feel like a crazy making experience. Like I'm going through this emotional emergency, just to use your words, and my lawyer's not responding to me. And whether or not that is responding within 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 weeks, like each person might be different, but the level of urgency that the client feels because of the emotional emergency is much more heightened than that person might be to any other event in their life.
Yes, I feel everything is more sensitive without them realizing it. To me, when I receive an email, I'm like, nothing is due yet in my head. And then I remind myself how it feels on the other side.
On the other side,
like,
yeah.
Actually, yeah, let's say something.
Yeah. I know that you work in mediation as well as in litigation. I do as well. So, from your perspective, what kinds of cases do you think benefit most from mediation?
Cases that, it's more about people and their attitude towards divorce and how they would like to resolve. I think most cases, unless it's highly sensitive domestic violence case or some really, really toxic topics, child molestation or something very extreme, I think most cases would benefit from mediation. In fact, in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, Marin, we do have in court system mandatory mediation process, meaning we cannot skip and say, now it's going to be a trial over some issue. So I explain to my clients a lot, do you want your kids to go through college or my kids to go through college when they want that trial? And sometimes the other side is very unreasonable. There are a couple cases a year where any attempt to settle has failed. Even asking for mediation is not accepted as an offer to go to mediation. So those type of cases are hard to mediate. There are going to be two parties willing to negotiate. And once they're at a table, 99% of the time, we settle.
You find that people, because in New York, we have presumptive mediation, and it's definitely not mandatory. And with the idea being that presumptively, people will benefit from mediation, and so courts are to refer them. It's a relatively new program, and it's just really starting to get some traction in the last year or two. But I've always wondered about mandatory mediation, California and other jurisdictions that have it. If people feel like, ugh, we're never going to be able to resolve this and resist, or is your experience that even when people resist, the process of mediation itself can be helpful?
It is helpful because when they resist and they hear from their lawyer once, twice, three times, well, what's the price of winning? You're going to spend more money litigating than you might get at the end. And, no, I want to get my story out. I want everyone to know that he or she is whatever that is. And then they hear it from a mediator one more time and realize, well, actually, I don't want my story to be out that bad because the judge has 30 people to listen to and they will forget. And the audience is very limited and it costs too much.
And they don't care that much, the judges, that is.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many cases. How could they possibly care about every single one in the way a person who's living their life would feel about it? It's just...
Right.
Yeah. You're listening to the Divorce Dialogues podcast, and I'm Catherine Miller. Divorce Dialogues has been educating people about divorce and relationship issues for over 10 years. Please subscribe to the podcast, and don't forget to check out our previous episodes on the podcast website, divorcedialogues.com. And I'm talking today with Diana Romanov. And Diana, if people are interested in learning more about you, your book, or want to get in touch, how can they do that?
To get in touch with me, easier to do it through the website, romanovlaw.com. And my book can be purchased on Amazon.
Where else?
Everyone is shopping at Amazon. I have 4 versions, Audible, Kindle, soft copy, and hard copy. And then I also have a YouTube channel called Divorce Like a Boss with providing content, how to get divorced, more information, no legal advice, 500 videos about things that I constantly say in consultation, and I don't think people should pay for it if they can listen to how spousal support works in California. They don't need to pay me for half an hour, just watch my video.
What does divorcing like a boss mean to you, Diana?
I was in a class for a relationship class, Alison Armstrong, and she said, for men, it's important to feel appreciated, and for women, it is very important to be in charge. And I took it to heart.
So divorcing like a boss, it's pink. So I'm guessing that your audience is primarily women. And
you would be surprised. I looked at my statistics.
The intended audience. And so what you're saying is, here's how to divorce and be in control, right? Be in charge, like being able to sort of manage the process in a way that feels comfortable. Is that right?
Yeah. Being in charge of the process instead of letting the process run your life in a way. Because even in Germany, system is different. The court will serve the divorce paperwork to the other side. In California, everything is petitioner respondent driven. Whoever files has to serve. Whoever wants money needs to file a request for order. There's nothing automatic. And so a lot of people don't understand that. So they're like, okay, I file for divorce when it's going to be done. I'm like, no, you are in the driver's seat. You got to do it. So let's have a plan.
All right, I'm going to risk boring our listeners here for a minute because California is a community property state. New York is an equitable distribution state. And so there's a difference there. And so from a community property state with regard to asset distribution, assets meaning what? How does that work in California so that people who might be choosing jurisdictions might have an opportunity to decide, hey, I'd rather do it in California or I'd rather do it in New York?
High level, I like to compare this with an apple tree. So if someone had an apple tree before the wedding, before the date of marriage, then the apple tree itself is considered separate property. An apple tree could be investment account, homes, businesses. That's considered separate. And the apples from the tree are also separate. That's interest, dividends. And then after the date of marriage, apple tree doesn't automatically become community property unless the spouse starts watering the tree, meaning manage bank accounts, live in the home that was separate. So if spouses choose to live in the home that used to be separate, then they will have a claim called Moore and Marsden claim. If principal was paid down during the marriage, then community has some reimbursement claims. If the spouse was managing portfolio himself or herself, then the management fee or some interest in increase in value of the portfolio could be considered community property. So that's where we look at the source of money. Where did this tree came from before the date of marriage, and who put the effort during the marriage until the date of separation, not until divorce filing, date of separation, when one spouse says, I'm done, and they both act accordingly, or at least the spouse who said that.
And is all community property then divided equal?
From the date of marriage until the date of separation, everything that was earned through personal effort considered community property. So earned, not spent, divided equally.
Well, that's what's different. I mean, it's all the concepts are pretty similar to New York, but in New York we have something called equitable distribution, and there are about 1 million cases that say equitable does not mean equal, although it often does, except for things like businesses or partnership interests and things like that, which are often not. Or if something has become what we call a marital asset, the same as community property, but it had a large separate component coming in that has not been maintained separate, but not if it were not for the apple tree that the person had before, then this fruit pie wouldn't have been not possible. So maybe the person who had I'm really, really butchering your analogy to the apple tree here, but the person who came in with the apple tree maybe gets a bigger piece of the apple pie because if it weren't for the fact that person had the apple tree ahead of time beforehand, they wouldn't have been able to make such a big pie. Something like that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Anywho, so reaching the end of our time here, Diana Romanov, and I'm wondering for someone who's listening, who's just beginning the process, particularly beginning the process of separation or divorce in California, what would you say is your best piece of advice to them to do first or to avoid feeling overwhelmed by the legal system?
Like with everything huge that I handle, I describe the big goal and then put it in small sections and in pieces. What do I need to do this week? First, maybe to file for divorce. Next week, serve for divorce. In 2 weeks, serve my preliminary declaration of disclosures. But if I'm the out spouse, then I need to gather all financial documents that I have in the home and copy them. So if the other spouse is hiding something, then I already have somewhat a good start to do more discovery, hire a forensic accountant. If I'm an out spouse, then, well, should I file for spousal support and child support first and attorney's fees if I need the money? If I'm the higher earner, well, maybe we should hire a joint accountant to save the fee so I don't have to pay for the other person's attorney's fee and accountant and my own. And we just go through collaborative divorce process, hire a mediator who helps us guide through it. And each of us has an attorney to make sure we understand our rights. So it depends. First of all, I would create a strategy. What's my budget? How do I want this divorce to go? how is my spouse wants this to go, and create a clear plan, ideally with the other spouse together, so that it doesn't cost a college fund for the child or the whole investment account that they saved for life in order to go through stupid things that don't have to be there. For example, unnecessary discovery that could have been provided right from the beginning, or calculating child support, spousal support right away instead of going through motions. So I think leaving emotions aside is easier said than done, but a lot of times emotions can be costly. And so literally leaving it aside and creating a strategy would be, and read my book, because I really describe everything, what I'm saying in more detail. Develop your team, have your team, step by step, how I would suggest to handle divorce with dignity and peace.
Great. Well, those are great closing words. Diana Romanov, thank you so much for being my guest on Divorce Dialogues.